Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed.
Modim anachnu lach, she'atahu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Imotenu. Modim anachnu lach, she'atahu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Imotenu. Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Modim anachnu lach, she'atahu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Imotenu. Modim anachnu lach, she'atahu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Imotenu. Thankful for our lives, thankful for our souls, thankful for the miracles, wondrous to behold. Thankful for the morning, thankful for the afternoon, thankful for the evening, nighttime blessed by you. Le'olam va'ed, forever and ever. Le'olam va'ed, forever and ever. Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Forever, 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 le'olam va'ed. Modim anachnu lach, she'atahu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, ve'imotenu. She'atahu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu, Imoteinu, Modim Anachnu Lach. She'atahu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu, Imoteinu, Leolam Va'ed, Leolam Va'ed, Leolam Va'ed.
Howard, you're welcome to sit up here. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Sorry we lost track of time chit-chatting, and we're going to get started with our lovely Erev Shabbat service. Hine Ma Tov, how good it is that we are together.
Hine ma tov u'manayim, she'erachim gam yahad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, she'erachim gam yahad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, she'erachim gam yahad. She'erachim gam yahad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, she'erachim gam yahad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, she'erachim gam yahad. She'erachim gam yahad.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
We want to welcome to those of you who are here in the sanctuary this evening and those of you who are watching online. We want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. We're thrilled this evening to be celebrating not only Shabbat, but the founding of Temple Beth Shalom 45 years ago this week. The first service, I should say, was 45 years ago this week. And after the service, we'll be saying a prayer to dedicate the mezzanine in honor of our beloved founding families. After the passing of Jim Feibel, the Feibel family gathered together and wanted to find a way to honor Jim and the founding families for all of the love and care that they put into Temple Beth Shalom. Don Feibel of blessed memory was instrumental in making that project come together. I think that was one of his last big things that he did here at the temple, along with the Shemansky Fund and the Cohn Feibel Fund, and we are very, very grateful for that. And we're so lucky to have a number of our founding families who are still with us and still active members of Temple Beth Shalom. Herb and Joyce Bronstein. We got Joyce. Joyce is with us here. We can get applause. Yeah, that's nice. Barbara and David Brandt and Babette Feibel is here, and Betty Hirsch, and Bobby and Alan Weiler, and Bob Weiler. We're so grateful to have the guidance and wisdom and love of all these people here at Temple. A look at our congregation here at the end of 2022 reveals that the energy and the heart and the warmth of our founding families is still palpable today. In this week's Torah portion, we have a very strange and interesting scene where Jacob wrestles with some sort of divine being. The two of them struggle for many hours until finally Jacob is blessed and given a new name, Yisrael. These past 45 years at Temple Beth Shalom have not been free from struggle. In fact, Joyce said blood, sweat, and tears, and I feel like that is an accurate portrayal. Our congregation has had to find new ways to stay connected to each other. We have adapted our Jewish practice and our customs to stay relevant and current, trying to meet the moments as the moments met us. But all of the struggles along the way have not hurt us, they have made us stronger and better, like a butterfly stretching its wings. God willing, we will continue to struggle and to adapt and to grow, because without that wrestling, without that struggle, TBS wouldn't be the place that it is today and the holy congregation before us. So throughout this evening, we're going to return to the very beginning of the TBS story. We're going to hear some of the history of the founding and the very early days of Temple Beth Shalom, even before we moved to this building here. Betty Young of blessed memory edited a history of the congregation for the 25th anniversary 20 years ago, and that is the source of a lot of tonight's readings. We're also thrilled that Rabbi A is going to share some memories of what Shabbat worship used to be like in the early days. So as we begin our service this evening, we want to welcome anyone who is a part of a founding family or has been a member of TBS for, let's say 30 years or more. to come up and light the Shabbat candles together. So come on up, anyone who would like to. All right. You don't have to do any Hebrew in front of everyone. Sure. Yeah, why don't you like them all sit right together? What's that? Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. Do you want to do that one? And we'll do the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu ad l'yireh shel Shabbat. Can you guys all stay there just for one quick second? I feel like we need a picture of this. Hold on. I know we're in the middle of a service, but I feel like this is Michael's got it. Oh no, how are we getting there? Get in there. Wait, hold on. Get Rabbi in there.
1, 2, 3. What a handsome looking dude.
Thank you. Thanks. That's really nice. Why don't we read together up here on the screen? O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words that we shall speak into our hearts and into our lives.
This first reading, recalling the history of the early days of Temple Beth Shalom, was written by Herb Bronstein. In late August 1977, the following individuals met at the home of Betty and Charles Sugarman: Jim Feibel, Herb Bronstein, Sam Shemansky, and the Sugarmans. Because of a dispute with Temple Israel, we met to decide whether or not we would form a new synagogue. We decided to go forward, and that evening we made 2 telephone calls. The first call was to the regional director of the UAHC, the Union for Reform Congregations. He told us quite frankly that we were crazy. He said that it would be very difficult to start a new congregation, that we would be in direct competition with Temple Israel, and gave us a variety of negatives concerning our proposed endeavor. This did not stop us. Our next call was more successful. We called Rabbi Mark Raphael, who was at the time professor of Jewish history at Ohio State. Rabbi Raphael had been instrumental in starting Beth Tikva, a new Reform congregation in the northwestern side of town. We met with the rabbi, and he agreed to help us establish our new congregation as our part-time rabbi. Approximately 25 families met at State Savings Bank later that fall for our first official organizing meeting of what would become Temple Beth Shalom. We're all very grateful that those decisions were made despite that first phone call. We're going to continue together in singing L'cha Dodi as we welcome Shabbat together.
Kakala, B'nei Penei Shabbat Nekavela, L'cha Dodi, L'kra Kala, B'nei Penei Shabbat Nekavela, L'cha Dodi, L'kra Kala, B'nei Penei Shabbat Nekavela, L'cha Dodi, L'kra Kala, B'nei Penei Shabbat Nekavela. Shamor v'zachor b'digur echad, Ishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad, Adonai echad, Shemo echad, Yishenu tiferet v'liki la 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 l'cha dodi, l'kra kala, B'nei Penei Shabbat nekavela, l'cha dodi, l'kra kala, B'nei Penei Shabbat nekavela. Dodi, l'kra kala, B'nei Hado di likra kala, B'nai B'nai Shabbat Mekabela. Kiva ore, kumi ori, shir daberi, kavod Adonai, L'cha hado di likra kala, B'nai B'nai Shabbat Mekabela. L'cha hado di likra kala, B'nai B'nai Shabbat Mekabela. Please rise and face the entrance to the room.
Ohi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, am v'sicha v'tzola, tokemonei am seduya, boi chala, boi chala,
Adoni likra kala, B'nai B'nai Shabbat Mekabela. 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 You may be seated. This is another reading written by Herb Bronstein, and this is edited by Betty Young. In 1979, Rabbi Raphael informed us that he had planned to go on sabbatical outside the country. Herb writes, he would no longer be able to serve as our rabbi. So we started looking. We learned that there was an applicant for the position who was attending Hebrew Union College in New York City. He wanted a part-time position. He was a senior at HUC and wanted to continue to study for a PhD on the Cincinnati campus. A part-time position in Columbus would give him the opportunity to gain experience as a pulpit rabbi and commute to Cincinnati for doctoral work. We brought him to Columbus and for a formal interview at our home. You guys probably still remember that, I'm assuming, the interview itself, with a committee of congregants for dinner. And at the next congregational meeting, we voted to ask Rabbi Apotheker to be our rabbi, and the rest is history, Herb wrote. And it's still right here. It's history right in front of us. That's great. More stories to come. We're going to invite everyone, though, to please rise as we turn to the Baruch Hu on page 28 or up here on the screen.
We're going to continue in our Recalling This History together. This passage was written by Bobby Weiler and again edited by Betty Young. Although our temple was originally formed because of a dispute, the group has made it a most positive force. The idea was to create a congregation that would be warm and responsive, not only to members, but to the community at large. It was to be truly democratic, not concerned with show or excessive ritual. We talked about singing songs like Morning Has Broken and This Land Is Your Land. She writes, remember, this was the 70s. The summer was long and hot, and the original families got caught up with meeting and planning to the point that my family couldn't believe our involvement. After all, the Weilers and Isaacs had belonged to Temple Israel for 3 generations before us. Here we were, contemplating a new temple. This was a learning experience for us all. And I think we can all agree that this is a warm and wonderful congregation, that those values we still feel them today. And they talked about singing songs like Morning is Broken and This Land Is Your Land. And we are going to bring that history to life as we are going to now sing This Land Is Your Land. The dream is real. So please join us.
It's only the first 2 verses, don't worry. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me the endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. I've roamed and rambled and followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond desert, and all around me a voice was calling. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. This is a reading by Jim Feibel. In 1980, Reverend Robert Butts, pastor at the Eastminster Presbyterian Church on East Broad Street, invited Temple Beth Shalom to move from the State Savings Bank across the street to his church. When a delegation from Beth Shalom, headed by Ed Freundlich, visited the church, the social hall looked very familiar to the basement meeting room at State Savings. No, the Reverend said, I thought you would share the sanctuary with us. Beth Shalom holding services on Friday evenings and on Saturdays, and the church holding services on Sundays. A wonderful idea, writes Jim, except for the gigantic 16-foot cross hanging in the very front of the sanctuary. Well, there was a solution for that. Founding member Don Feibel had a carpenter fabricate a giant U-shaped screen 20 feet high, which when raised into position would completely hide the cross. The really heavy lifting began each Friday evening. Often before dinner, some 5 or 6 Beth Shalom people would struggle to raise the U-shaped screen to its 20-foot height, and then wrestle the not-so-portable, not-so-stable contraption into place in front of the cross. Meanwhile, other members wheeled the church's communion table to the side and Beth Shalom's ark to the center. After a few more details, voila, writes Jim. Eastminster Church had been successfully converted into a Jewish house of worship. That was until Saturday. This back-and-forth conversion, returned to the church's sanctuary each week after week, continued until the temple moved to New Albany in 1997. What a wonderful gesture from the members of Eastminster to allow, let alone volunteer to permit our congregation to convert their sanctuary in this manner each week to Jewish worship. And I mean, I can't even imagine what an undertaking that was, and what a beautiful sign of togetherness that was. We need more of that today, don't we? We're going to invite everyone to please rise as we join in singing Shema and then Ve'ahavta.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'leftecha l'derech v'shavbecha v'kumecha v'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha v'ktavtam al mizot beitecha v'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים Ani Adonai Elohechem.
This next reading is written by Howard Beyer, and he explains who opened the window, the image that we see so often associated with TBS. Howard writes, I did. He says, when TBS was just getting started in the basement of State Savings Bank, there was an urgent need for communication to the founding members, and a monthly newsletter fit the bill. I named the publication The Window because I felt an open window let in fresh air and sunlight, and that these qualities were what the fledgling temple stood for. And thankfully what it continues to stand for, and I know the window has made its way into all sorts of imagery, even right here on our screens. I believe also the arc doors as well.
Here and there, yeah.
And there, yeah, so we see it all over the place that lives on, and those values as well. We'll continue. Why don't we all take a moment and think about what we may be grateful for this evening. You can share it with the person next to you, and we'll continue with singing together, Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha
This is a reading written by Cindy Leland, who was here a little bit later on, but reflected on the beginning of TBS. In the beginning, the music for Temple Beth Shalom services was intended to be comfortable, almost an atmosphere of sing-along. Having come from services where the congregation was expected to listen rather than to participate, this took a bit of time to accomplish, since we had to learn new songs and new ways to worship. So we began with folk singer, guitarists who incorporated simple Israeli folk songs, classical reform hymns and songs, and pieces by modern Jewish composers. One of them in the room with us right now, Rabbi A, wrote, I think, 3 big pieces that were used in TBS liturgy very often, and pieces by modern Jewish composers on themes of freedom and tolerance in the weekly liturgy. Much of the music was sung in English early on. Slowly in time, Hebrew was added to the liturgy as well, writes Cindy Leland. As a lovely example of that, we'll continue with Hashkivenu. You can find that on page 42, with a little Hebrew, a little English.
Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, shalom.
And this is a reading written by Betty Young. She writes about the social action program of the temple that developed throughout the early years. The Social Action Committee of Temple Beth Shalom became the largest standing committee in the temple. We provided meals for our neighbors through Meals on Wheels, for the homeless through Interfaith Hospitality Network, and for those in need in our community through contributions to our own Rebecca's Well, which was designed by TBS member Rona Rosen. Didn't know that before this. Thank you, Rona, if you're watching this. Giving back to the community and helping those in need was an important part of the mission of TBS in 1977 and continues still to this day as well. We're going to continue in the Amidah in hoping to inspire us to be better versions of ourselves, to do those great acts out in the community, and we'll invite you to please rise. We are either on page 46 in your Siddur or up here on the screen with Adonai Sifatai.
Adonai
Anananas Vatai Tiftar. Ufi Agli. Ufi Agli
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Hasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Moshia Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, V'chayei HaKol HaTarav L'Hoshia, V'chalkel Hayim B'chesed, V'chayei HaKol B'rachamim Rabim, Tzomech Noflim V'rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim B'emunato, Rishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidol Melech, Melech Meimid Umekayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'nemanata l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalu chasela, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el hakadosh.
Amen. You may be seated. As we reflect on the past, we recall that it was on December 9th, 1977, that the temple was first dedicated. And so we honor that with our mezzanine dedication tonight. And it's fitting that the first official service at TBS was a Hanukkah service, also a dedication, because our congregation has always strived to be a light to our congregants, our community, and to the world. The spark lit by our founders has been sustained by our community, how much it has grown and shaped the lives and the futures of so many of us. We see it every Friday night, every life cycle event, in the children of our religious school, in our board meetings, and in the families for whom Temple Beth Shalom is not just a synagogue, but their Jewish home. We see it in the ways our community embodies and passes down the values of our founders, but perhaps without even realizing it, by the way our congregants welcome visitors and new members, how they serve in leadership roles, and how we give back to the wider community through Tikkun Olam. That light even persevered through the pandemic when so much was unpredictable and uncertain. Like the eternal flame above our ark, the light of Temple Beth Shalom is a light that will never go out. The light of our founders is a light that will never go out. It will be sustained lador vador from generation to generation, and each of us has a role in sustaining that beautiful light. We'll continue now with a few moments of silent prayer. If you have a prayer book, you can use pages 54 to 60 or your own words in your heart.
Osei shalom bimromav, hu yasei shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael, ve'akol yoshvei kever, ve'imru,
Amen. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la, ya la la. Just voices. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
We are now very honored to invite up Rabbi A to share with us a few words, if you want to share a few words about the early days of TBS, some fun memories.
Say again. You have however many you want.
Well, it can't be Hanukkah because I don't see any Christmas trees. Insiders will know what that means. Yes, that was the way you knew you were at Temple Beth Shalom around Hanukkah. The Christmas trees would go up, and I guess the first couple of years we maybe kind of hid them, and then after a while we said, "What the heck? They look nice, and let's just enjoy them and appreciate them." I want to just mention, I got kind of instructions that I thought that we were supposed to talk about, like what happened outside the sanctuary a little bit, maybe like in a mezzanine-like area. And so I want to just tell a couple of stories about that. One is about one of our founding members, whose name is Doc Bash. Everyone knew him as Doc. He had another name, but nobody knew that one. And he looked like an older version of the guy you see on the Cracker Jack box. You know, very kind of happy and joyous sort of guy, very lovable, very concerned about people's health and so on. Well, a new family was visiting our congregation, had just come in with their children. One of the children on the side had a tooth missing. And so Doc, of course, went over and tried to make some conversation a little bit with the kid to show, and it looked in the child's mouth like this, and the mother, who brand new mother's looking over there, "Who's that strange man looking in my child's mouth?" Another story is about many of our congregants were of very humble means. And one child was going to be celebrating his call to the Torah as a bar mitzvah. It was a Havdalah bar mitzvah. And I was told by the church folks that there was going to be a wedding right after that. And so we needed to get it moving along as quickly as possible. When I walked, I was told that it was going to be set up. There would be decorations there, and there was nothing I could do. There were going to be wedding decorations prior to this. And again, a very humbly financed family was going to have the service there. I got to the building, to the entryway, and through a small anteroom into the sanctuary had to be $10,000 worth of flowers. The place was filled with flowers, and I sweated it out while the guests came in for the bar mitzvah, and we're looking at all these flowers and wondering, I wonder how these people got so much money that they could afford all these this beflowered sanctuary and social hall. That same area was a hive of activity that was jam-packed all the time prior to our annual yard sale in the heat of the summer. And it included all manner of stuff that we had brought. Jim Feivel, as an example, used to always tell the story of me carrying a sofa down Broad Street over my head. Marty Oppenheimer, who had been president of the congregation at one time, and I moved a pinball machine from the second floor of the Weiler's house on, and a task that probably should have taken no less than 4 or 5 people. He and I schlepped that thing down in order to sell it. One person during the sale was looking at some of the goods, and I, who had bought a brand new belt, and I thought, was a big deal for me in those days to buy a brand new belt and have it on. I realized that I was schwitzing so much that the belt would become wet and I'd ruin it immediately. So I took it off and put it over a chair, and not 10 minutes later, somebody was buying it from one of our, and there was nothing I could do about it at that point. It had been claimed and bought. Let's see. Let's see, one more story maybe, and that'll be enough. Yeah. Well, two more actually. One very brief one. When we would have social events at the temple, and again, I'm speaking outside the sanctuary now, we had a small social hall there, and all the time we would set it up with chairs, and at the end of that event, we were expected to take the chairs down and put them against the wall, and everyone would leave, and the chairs would be there. And there were two people who went and pulled down all the chairs, and one of them wasn't me. I did it once. The other person who would stay there till the end, putting down all the chairs, was Jim Feibel, in his suit and jacket, all the time, making sure that we were fulfilling our responsibilities and doing something without even mentioning, without complaint, without saying, I wish more people would stay. He would just be there doing the work with me. A little thing like that bespoke so much to me, and it made the quality of the congregation, about which Rabbi Lynette and Rabbi Benji have spoken, to be just the essence of people taking and looking at what other people needed and helping to fulfill those small needs. So that's just the last story then. This one is again about the lobby, the mezzanine, our version of the mezzanine, very short. One time my now wife, Marcy, was greeting people in the anteroom when a brand new family walked in. Marcy, of course, like everybody at TBS, gave a most cordial greeting by letting them know who she was. She said, "I'm the rabbi's girlfriend," to which the newcomer replied without a pause, "Huh, does his wife know?" Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi A, for those stories. We're going to continue in our service together with our Misha Beirach prayer as we now draw into our hearts those who are in need of healing, of support and comfort, of mind, body, and spirit. This evening in our community, we are thinking for the praying for the healing of Marilyn Altman, Lynn Adams, Susan Bader, Sarah Bates, Deborah Belford, Barbara Belford, Marjorie Block, Barbara Bobinich, Paul Branson, Dan Kristen, Kyla Serrani, Marge Serrani, Dorothy Collins, Lily Kovitz, Adrian Crawford, David Drayson, Gary Dicker, Tony Diegler, Ella Dubrow, Carrie Ebert, Sylvia Eckstein, Elaine Ellick, Nancy Emmerman, Rachel Ensign, Marvin Epstein, Michael Fiorelli, Rachel Fish, Olivia Glick. We're thinking of Ken Goldman, Rachel Goldman Mosley, Gladys Goodman, Jimmy Green, David Haas, David Hirsch, Neil Johnson, Katie Jones, Jamie Grace Cash, John Kerr, Peter Levy, Barb Lucas. We're thinking of Fred Martin, Minna Melton, Caleb Moses, Susan Northrup, Robert Oakley, Nick Parisi, Marvin Pate, Merle Perlow, Aaron Phelan. We're thinking of Ian Phillips, Rashi Pristowski, Jessica Rathkopf, Cindy Ravitsky, William J. Rees, Larry Reamer, Barry Richmond, Emma Rose, Irving Rose, Phyllis Rotman. We're thinking of June Sahara, Rolf Sauer, Don Schneer and Steve Schneer, Nina Davsella, Karen Silverman, Yehudit Bat Simcha, Richard Schur, Jonah Snyder, Ruth Ann Stewart, Pam Storer, Lou Supowitz, Joy Schwartzman, Andrea Tuber, and Randy Cohen Weinstock. And anyone who you may be thinking of this evening You're welcome to share their name with us or just think of them. Thank you. For all those who are in need of healing, we'll sing together, Misha Berach.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Imotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And let us say, Amen.
We'll move now into our concluding prayers, first with Bayom Hahu. Please join us.
Bayom Hahu Yeh Adonai Echad. Bayom Hahu Yeh Shemo Echad. Ne'emar, as it is written, Ne'emar, let it be said, God rules the earth, and that day God shall be one. V'haya Adonai, melech kol haaretz. On that day, God's name shall be one. Bayom Hahu Yeh Adonai Echad. Bayom Hahu Yeh U'Shemo Echad. U'Shemo Echad.
On a night like tonight, when we spend so much time dwelling in the past, I think that's one of the times when those who are not here come into the sharpest focus. We realize the emptiness of the seat next to us, people who used to be here, and people who were such a big part of where we are. But I think the beauty of telling these stories is that in telling these stories, we keep our loved ones alive. Every time we remember something funny or fun that happened, anytime we go back and maybe watch an old home movie of someone we love or look at a picture, we have the ability to bring them into the room with us. And I think on an evening like tonight, all the more so, do we remember them and do we bring them with us, their goodness, and perhaps we can look around the room and see their imprint on the people here and on the place itself. On this Shabbat at Temple Beth Shalom, we are remembering the recent deaths of Richard Ackley, of Carol Flegel, of Christine Gardner, of Laureen Katzman, Phyllis Kirschbaum, Suzanne Osborne, of Dane Perlstein, Janet Sunderman, and Dee Capelli. We remember those who died at this season in years past. We're remembering the yardsites of Gladys Collar, of Rachela Friedberg, Mark Goldman, and Bernard Kastner, Alexandria Claudel, Samuel Kuhl, Lillian Kushner, Goldie Leviton. We're thinking of Molly Levin, of Sam Levine, Bert Mayerson, David Shiner, Sidel Schifrin, Harry Siegfried, Sherry Warden, Michael Weeks, Lillian Weinberg, and Rosalind Weiss. And I want to mention the names of loved ones who are founding members of this congregation, whose souls are bound up in the fabric of who we are as a people. We're thinking of Mel and Doc Bash, Shirley and Ben Bronstein, Celia and Herb Beyer, Susan and Howard Beyer, Jim Feibel, Pearl and Troy Feibel, Don Feibel, Dorothy and Herbert Fenber, Connie and Ed Freundlich, Arthur Hirsch, Minna and Murray Landers, Edie and Morton Love, Frida and Alan Mickler, Harriet Parker, Elaine and Mike Robbins, Lori and Jerry Rose, Gail and Sam Szymanski, Charles Sugarman, and Missy Weiler. I ask if there are other names of folks who we are remembering this time that we share those names. On behalf of folks mentioned, on behalf of all those in our world who have no one left to say Kaddish for them, I invite our congregation to please rise as we say our Kaddish prayer together. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'yizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yit hadar v'yit taleh v'yit halal shemei dekudasham b'richu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom mimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God, who sends harmony and goodness into this world, help each of us to find a little bit of wholeness and help us always to bring our loved ones with us and in our lives every day. Together we say, amen. You may be seated. Switching gears, we are going to invite the one and only Robert Kovitz to deliver a few announcements on this lovely Erev Shabbat.
Thank you, Rabbi Benji, and Shabbat Shalom. It is truly wonderful to see so many families tonight who were instrumental in the creation of all of this. And one of the true perks of my job has been getting to know many of the people in this room over the course of my 2 years with TBS. So thank you for welcoming me, and it's been a pleasure to get to know so many of you. Please join us in the mezzanine after services for a great oneg as we formally dedicate our beautiful new space. We recognize it will be a little cramped in there, so there is overflow seating in the social hall if you would like to have a little more room. As we've mentioned many times tonight, it is Hanukkah season at TBS, and we begin our celebration tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the social hall for a Hanukkah-themed Tot Shabbat, so a great event for all of the young families. And then next Friday at 6:30, we have our annual Hanukkah party with a great brisket and latkes dinner provided by TBS's Men's Club. And next Friday is also our first Legacy Shabbat, where we'll honor the people who are keeping the temple's candles burning, if you will, for decades to come. For all of that and more, please check out your window, the e-window, or call the temple if you have any questions or email any of us. With that, Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for joining us tonight. Rabbi?
So just a quick word of logistics for how we're going to do this. We have a very, very brief dedication, one side of one page, promise. So what we'll do is we're going to invite anyone who wants to. I know we all want to hang around here for a few moments, but if we can kind of, as quickly as we can, move into the mezzanine, we'll do a prayer from the top of the stairs, and we'll all kind of dedicate the space together with Kiddush and Motzi and a Shehechianu and all that good stuff. So that's the plan. If you don't want to do that, then get out really fast. and don't get trapped down there. Why don't we join together with our closing song, and then we'll do Kiddush Motzi, Lech Ilach, to a land that I will show you.
Lech Ilach, to a land that I will show you. Lech Lecha, to a place you do not know. Lech Ilach, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lech Ilach. Lech Ilach. And I shall make your name great. Lech Lecha. And all shall praise your name. Lech Ilach, to the place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, Lech Ilach. And you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lech Ilach.
Shabbat Shalom. We'll do Kiddush Motzi once everyone's down.